So the left got some much-needed, really good news last night. There's actually a few pieces of good news. So the first one is Rashida Talib absolutely crushed her primary opponent. There's something that's just so wonderful about this because, and this happened in the lead up to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's race as well. You had like CNBC and a lot of these main networks. They were acting like, oh, this is probably going to be a close race. Trying to make it seem like the establishment centrist primary opponents, would have a chance. And not only did they not have a chance, they got smoked, son. So she basically doubled the vote count of her primary challenger. And the establishment and the corporatists are going to have to learn to live with Rashida Tlaib, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Ilhan Omar, and a bunch of the Justice Democrats. Because once they're in there, they ain't going anywhere, dog. So they think that they're more unpopular than they really are. And, I've always maintained, I think that if the Justice Democrats really honed in on, like, the economic issues and the healthcare issue and, like, the issues that affect everybody, then, even the smears would have a hard time sticking, even in audiences that totally disagree with them, like on Fox News. If they really honed in and focused on those economic issues where they have the overwhelming majority of the American people behind them, they'd be untouchable. But the fact of the matter is they're not really just honing on the economic issues, and at least in Democratic primaries, they're totally untouchable. So, it's wonderful news that she crushed her challenger. The media tried to make it seem like it was going to be a close race and maybe Rashida Tlaib would be beaten. I love that. So she crushed her. The next thing is, in Missouri, they had a vote on the Medicaid expansion. Now, one of the reasons why, as time has gone on, I've warmed more and more to the idea of having direct ballot initiatives is because when you look at the results of the direct ballot initiatives in all the respective states around the country, you find out very quickly when you ask people issue by issue questions, the overwhelming majority of the time, they're super reasonable and they have common sense and they pick the thing that is in everybody's best interest. Now, it's not perfect, but usually when, we lose a direct ballot initiative, it's honestly because of a giant propaganda campaign that's launched by big money industries, big money lobbying groups on the other side of the issue. So this happened a handful of times with marijuana. This happened, I believe, with some pharmaceutical drug issue in California recently. But I'm telling you, if you do an objective analysis of all of the direct ballot initiatives, it's got to be at least 7 or 8 out of 10 times. So 70 to 80% of the time, the position that helps the most people wins. So that makes me want to have more direct ballot initiatives. I've been pushing for a direct ballot initiative at the federal level, where every time we vote in a presidential election, every 4 years, we don't just vote for president. It's like you vote for president and whatever the top 5 issues are that are on the ballot. And that might include getting out of Iraq and Afghanistan, legalizing marijuana at the federal level, raising the minimum wage. If we did this, it would be a way around all the corruption. And it would be a way for people, regular people, to have their voice heard, and we would govern a hell of a lot more reasonably than the corrupt idiots who are usually in charge of the government. So they voted on Medicaid expansion in Missouri. You know what happened? They voted to expand Medicaid. Because when you give people the option, hey, are you in favor of more health care or less health care? People usually go, that's a pretty stupid question. I'm going to go with more health care. So now over 200,000 people are going to get health care. Poor people, because it's Medicaid, they're going to get health care. Early on, the vote was crushing. It was like 70% or something in favor of the Medicaid expansion. It ended up winning with like 53 or 54% of the vote. So it was a little closer than, I would have guessed. But nonetheless, we still won. The Medicaid expansion still won. So I can't even put into words how amazing that is, because this directly impacts the lives of so many people. Like, this literally saves lives. The fact that they're now going to expand Medicaid in Missouri, it saves lives. So, you know, this is what it's all about. This is what good governance is all about. It's so important. But I saved the best story for last. And you can see the graphic over my shoulder here. It's a little hint, as well as probably the title of the video. But Cori Bush, the original Justice Democrat. Now, she lost her election the first time she ran. In fact, if I'm being honest, she kind of got a little crushed. She only got like 30 or 35% of the vote the last time around. She ran again. Not only did she win, she defeated a political dynasty. So there was all this, like, you know, redistricting, hard word to say. And, you know, Lacey Clay, the opponent, like, his dad ran the district, was the congressman from the district for a really long time. He's been in Congress for so long now. And I remember when we launched Justice Democrats, and this was literally the first Justice Democrat was Cori Bush, number one. I remember the reaction. The reaction from everybody, not just mainstream media, but even other so-called progressive groups. They were like, so you're going to go after somebody who's in the Congressional Black Caucus, who is not the most corporate of the corporate Democrats, and you're going to go after a political dynasty. They looked at us like we were crazy. They're like, what? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? And then, of course, came the accusations of, like, oh, they're not team players, and, you know, they're actually helping Republicans or whatever. All nonsense, all nonsense, all nonsense, all nonsense. But Cori Bush, this is her second time running. She never gave up. By the way, they tried to get other progressive groups to back Cori Bush. The other progressive groups, nowhere to be found. Crickets. You want to know why? Because a lot of the progressive groups, they don't actually make the decisions based on the issues. Based on, hey, who's better when it comes to policy, and let's do everything we can to elect somebody who's best on policy. No. Other progressive groups, well, we have to take in some pragmatic and practical considerations, and we have to take in some careerist considerations, and we have to, you know, form alliances and allegiances wherever we can, and it's a whole, you know, corrupt game where it's I scratch your back, you scratch mine, and it just so happens that the longer you're in the game, the more you overlook terrible decisions made by these politicians, and it becomes not about the issues. Well, Cori Bush ran again, and she never gave up. And she is an activist and an organizer. She's out there in the streets all the time. She leads movements. That's what she does. She never gave up. Even when other so-called progressive organizations were like, we're not going to endorse her, we're not going to help her. It was Cori, and it was Justice Democrats, and she ran again, and she won. She defeated Lacey Clay and a political dynasty. Now, this feels honestly just as big as the unseating of Joe Crowley when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez beat Joe Crowley. And listen, it's getting to the point where there are many instances of it's undeniable now. I love when I was on that Politicon panel and you had Joe Lockhart, corporate Democrat extraordinaire, who's literally done, you know, lobbying for authoritarian dictatorships overseas like Saudi Arabia, theocracies. I remember arguing with him, and we were throwing back and forth statistics, and he was basically trying to say, like, almost like, give it up, the left doesn't win. And I had a whole bunch of numbers there that were, to me, were amazing. Like, Justice Democrats, we won like 40% of our primaries or something to that effect. We have like 9, maybe 10 Justice Democrats in Washington, D.C. now. And I was looking at that like, that's definitely a success. Never mind all at the local level with the DSA victories, for example. Like, what more do you want? And that's the point, is this group didn't exist before 2016. It was created after the 2016 election. It's a brand new group. The group has a permanent monetary disadvantage because they don't take any corporate PAC money. Permanent monetary disadvantage. It's all grassroots. So, what more did you want? We're at a permanent money disadvantage. We're at a name recognition disadvantage. It started with me, Cenk Uygur, Shoykat Chakrabarti, and Zach Exley. So, like, former Bernie Sanders staffers and me and Cenk, a ragtag group, kind of like put it out there, tried to build it up, and then now it's a lot more established. But bottom line is, how many victories would they need to say, oh, this is actually a thing? And they've been underestimating everybody for a long time. I mean, I remember the tweet that now comes back up every time a Justice Democrat wins. This tweet resurfaces where they said, like, they're not primarying anybody. Nobody's afraid of those nerds. Tell that to all the corporate Democrats who were ousted, because there's a number of them now. So, you know, Jamal Bowman is another good example of a lefty, unseated Elliot Engel. Listen, it's a trend, dog. It's a trend. I like what Ken Klippenstein said. He said something along the lines of, how much longer until we stop viewing these as, like, you know, bombshell, like, amazing upset victories and just change our conception of what's possible? Because apparently it's possible. But listen, this gets to one of the main points. I've said this on the show in different contexts before, but if you keep showing up, they cannot deny you. If you keep showing up, they cannot deny you. Like, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up. Because most people are going to tap out at a certain point. And if you just keep showing up, something's going to happen. Some doors are going to open up. And this is exactly what Cori Bush did. When you look up persistence in the dictionary, she's there. And she has an amazing story, by the way. An amazing story. She's a nurse. She was homeless. They used terrible smear tactics going after her for her financial troubles. Probably backfired, by the way. So what I want to do now, and I'm telling you, this makes me feel so good. I want to go back. What we're going to see here, this is an announcement of Cori Bush's campaign. This is on my show, and Cenk also did it on TYT. But I remember when we were having the meetings and like, okay, when are we going to roll out our first Justice Democrat? And we settled on the date. And so this is me announcing to you guys the very first Justice Democrat. I believe this is like a week after I did the whole spiel about what Justice Democrats is all about, what the goal is, what we're trying to do, and how we're going to make a difference and all this stuff. But this is when we're launching the first Justice Democrat ever, Cori Bush. Here's what I said about it. This is May in 2017. Today is a day full of very exciting announcements for you guys. So I'm going to present to you Justice Democrat candidate number 1. So she's running in Missouri's 1st District. Her name is Cori Bush. Let me play for you a quick little bio about her. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you why we love her and who she's running against.
My name is Cori Bush. I'm a nurse, an ordained pastor, a social justice advocate, community activist, and hopefully soon, one of your elected officials. I'm a parent. I'm a single parent. So I understand walking through taking care of children by yourself. I understand what that daily routine is like. I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. And then on top of living paycheck to paycheck, to wonder about your future and the future of your children. It's not about the title. I just want to be in a position where I'm able to help people on a larger scale. I've been able to do it on a small scale with no name, no money. And this is why I'm running for United States Congress to represent Missouri's 1st District.
So Cori is, of course, taking no corporate money and no PAC money because she's a Justice Democrat, and she fully understands just how much big money and corporate money has corrupted our system, and she refuses to be part of that corruption. She's running because she actually cares about the people in her district, and she has a track record of fighting for the people. So no corporate money, no PAC money. She's in favor of Medicare for all. She's in favor of free college. She's for ending the drug war and reversing mass incarceration. She's for making the minimum wage a living wage. And she was an early backer of Bernie Sanders. And she even went as far as to speak at some of his rallies. So when I tell you I couldn't be more excited about her, I mean it. She is a perfect candidate. Now, who's she running against? Well, she's running against a congressman named Lacy Clay. Why does he have to go? Because some people might say, well, look, I mean, isn't he somewhat progressive? Isn't he, he's not the worst of the worst when it comes to the corporate Democrats, so why is he being targeted? Well, there's a few reasons. So Representative Clay voted against an amendment to limit military surplus transfers to local cops in 2014. So do you understand what that means? That means that even though he represents Ferguson, he's a backer of police militarization. That is flat out inexcusable. That clip goes on for a while longer, by the way. Now, she's a congresswoman, and he's been defeated. She didn't win the first race. This is the second time she ran, and she won. I also think we underestimate, guys, how important it is, how important name recognition is. So if you run for office once and you don't win, and you run a second time and you don't win, it's very possible that by the fourth or fifth or sixth time you win. Now, the hard thing is, of course, everybody has to pay the bills and everybody needs money, and you can't just, it's so hard to juggle normal life and keeping the lights on with trying to run for office, which is such a giant undertaking. But my point is, sometimes people feel that sting of rejection the first time and they're just like, I'm done, I'm tapping out. But if you keep showing up, they won't deny you. They won't deny you. So, Jessica Cisneros, by the way, if she runs again, if she runs 3 or 4 times, at some point she's definitely going to win. She almost won the first time, okay? So just keep going, keep showing up. And I actually think that's one of the tricks that the wealthy have been able to pull off, which is you need a lot of money in order to run for office. You need a lot of money for your campaign, but also you need a lot of money in the bank to be able to keep the lights on, like I was alluding to. So it's almost like they know that, and they know how hard it is for regular people with an average income. They know how hard it is for them to run, so they already know the trick of like, oh, if I just keep running, eventually I'll win. So, and then listen, on top of all that, don't get it twisted, I'm not just talking about, the dynamics of the race from a non-substantive perspective here, because I'm a true believer that, especially when we're talking about the issues that people agree with us on, then you're likely to get elected even sooner. It's very rare you have somebody running for office who's a true representative of the people, and that's who Cori Bush is. And so she won. She won her second time. And it makes me so happy to see this. I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy for us. I mean, this is another vote for Medicare for all. A real vote for Medicare for all. That's amazing. Now, I do want to show you one more clip here. So this was all the way back in May of 2017. Launching the first Justice Democrat, the OG Justice Democrat. Next, I want to show you, we're going to fast forward here. I believe this one was from 2018, this clip that you're about to see. This is me going on Fox News. I forget what the issue was that they said we're going to talk about. But they sprung Cori Bush on me and said, okay, defend that, Kyle. They thought it was like a gotcha. They thought they were tripping me up because Cori was calling for, raising taxes on the rich. I was like, are you kidding me? Yummy in my tummy. Watch.
Tuesday's primary in Missouri, Cori Bush, Democratic Socialist, taking on Lacey Clay, longtime Democratic congressman. There comes a question, though, in terms of how palatable across the board these folks are, not just in primaries. Interview with Cori Bush from about 2 weeks ago, and then we'll get your guys' reaction. Roll it. The wealthy should pay their fair share.
Yes, wealthy should pay their fair share.
What is a fair share? What percentage?
So you're saying that you're saying that they're paying their fair share is what you're saying?
No, I'm asking what percentage is a fair share. What fair share would you like to change the tax rate to on the wealthiest, what percentage of Americans, so it's a fair share?
So let's say the wealthy 1% could pay, let's say if they paid, let's just give them 45%.
Kyle, is that the future of the Democratic Party?
I hope it's the future of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
Jeff Bezos has over $100 billion at the same time that we have 60,000 homeless veterans in this country and 400,000 homeless Americans. And the American people, again, to go to the polls, overwhelmingly want to raise taxes on the rich, overwhelmingly want to raise taxes on Wall Street and corporations. I'm talking about 58% of Americans. So if your strategy is to defend the rich, by all means, go right ahead.
I enjoyed that thoroughly. It was my pleasure to defend Cori Bush. Again, this was back in 2018. She did lose that race, but now she won. So, listen. We're on the move. We're marching along. And, Rome wasn't built in a day, as the old saying goes.